think we are live and hopefully going to stay live this time. Third time's the charm, I guess. But it is Jake Senholz and my partner, Zach Espinoza, who is going to drink a little Mayo coffee for us here in just a couple of minutes. We'll get to that in a second. But first of all, I want to remind you to head on over to prizepicks.com. Use the code FLURRY, FLURRY. Almost any state in the union, you're going to be able to place different DFS type bets and be able to win money on tons of different sports, not just football. They've got golf, baseball playoffs, of course, right now. Hockey is just starting again, and basketball right around the corner. So definitely take advantage of our offer over at prizepicks.com, code FLURRY, and you're going to get up to $100 match when you deposit. So thank you to Prize Picks. I see we are officially up and running. I see it with my own eyes on Twitter. So hello, welcome in everybody. It's week 6 already. Don't like to think about how much of the NFL season has already gone by. After this Sunday, we are a third of the way through the regular season. Bye weeks are obviously starting already. So that's going to be something that we can maybe touch on tonight, or maybe the source of some of your questions. What do I do with 2 of my players on bye week? And those type of things are going to be concerns for the next about 7 or 8 weeks here. So before we dive on into it, I do want to get a little bit of a crowd going. Looks like we got a few viewers here on Twitter. Make sure, a lot of you probably saw or maybe didn't see the shortened stream last week. Again, I apologize for that. We were only on for about 10 minutes, but we got a full hour coming to you tonight. So I guess without any further ado, we got a few people watching before we start doling out the fantasy advice here. Zach, a couple of weeks ago, voluntarily said he will eat a humble pie if he was incorrect on the side on the picking the Thursday night game. He was incorrect, and he's a man of his word. He's going to drink some Mayo coffee here as his form of humble pie. Now, Zach, this isn't something that you're going to have to do every week, but since you did lose right away the first week we picked the game, I guess it's pretty fitting. We'll take a couple weeks and come up with another punishment, but I guess I'll leave the floor to you. Share your thoughts, and let's see this Mayo coffee in action here.
I don't know what our deal is with licensing and branding. Let's just say that this Mayo can be used in some arts and craft. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think we have any Mayo deals, so probably won't matter.
Oh, sponsor us at Craft. We can get crafty. There's our slogan, get crafty. Anyway.
So the Mayo coffee was what? Is that Aiden Hutchinson, or who is it that like that? It's some rookie, right?
It's going to kill me that I don't remember, but I don't remember.
I'll Google it here while you're
All right, guys. Then for the viewing audience, while you're Googling it, I'm going to put my mayonnaise in my coffee. Oh.
It says Will Levis, the quarterback, Kentucky quarterback.
They've lost 2 weeks in a row. It's probably because of this.
Wow, that's a healthy amount. I didn't know how much you were putting in there.
Oh, my God, no. Oh, God.
I want to give that a good stir. Don't worry, folks. We are going to get to the fantasy football advice here, but this is just too good to rush.
Let it sit. Let it simmer. Oh, that is disgusting. I want you to see this. This is chunky as schnitzel.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't even, I thought it would act like a creamer, and apparently it doesn't.
I mean, it got lighter. It got lighter in brown.
Is that hot coffee, or has it been sitting for a while?
It's been sitting for like 10 minutes.
Oh.
Okay, it's breaking up. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Cheers. Cheers to all the losers this week. I'll be joining you.
All right, let's see what he's got here. Pretty healthy sip, holding it up to the lips. Going in for more.
I didn't get it the first time. I went back for more. Should not have done it.
The Mayo hit you on the second attempt.
Oh. And that, folks, is why you don't want to lose.
So Will Levis is officially insane then.
Huh?
I said Will Levis is officially insane then.
You got to be insane just to even conjure that up. So yeah.
All right. Well, Zach, little entertainment there for you. He's a man of his word, and that was just humble pie number 1. I think as the season goes on, maybe they'll get worse. Maybe I'll have to eat a humble pie.
Oof. I'm open to it. That way I don't have to be alone in this.
Although I don't get very many picks wrong, so we'll see. We'll see.
All right, now.
All right. Well, thank you for the entertainment. I suppose we should transition to fantasy football from here, but we'll cut that up. Maybe post it on the Flurry pages, or at least post it on our own pages.
I'm looking forward to what the comments will be. I want to see if they get worse.
Definitely hit up Zach with your if anybody out there likes, you got your own mayo coffee recipe that maybe would make it a little better. Definitely hit up Zach on Twitter and let him in on the secret. But Zach, I know we got a lot to talk about fantasy football wise here tonight. You have a lot of things on your mind. I want to talk a little bit about Christian McCaffrey eventually, and then of course we'll answer any and all questions that come our way. So floor is open. Definitely feel free to start tossing those questions our way. That's why we are here. Zach, let's start with one thing that we talked about back on our first 2 streams. As you put it, the emergence of the rookie running backs, these kind of 2, even 3-headed monsters in the backfield that we've seen sometimes with these younger, more inexperienced players, the ETNs, the Breece Halls, things of that nature. Breece Hall specifically has really, it only took him 2, maybe 3 weeks to kind of take over that position. He's been playing very, very good football. What do Michael Carter owners do here? Obviously, they probably wish he hung on a little bit longer, produced at a higher rate a little bit longer. But Breece Hall, obviously the number 1 guy in that backfield now.
Yeah, Michael Carter owners. Michael Carter has officially become handcuffed. So you're going to have him strictly for insurance purposes. That being said, if Breece Hall gets injured and you don't have him on your team, but you have Michael Carter, that is instant trade bait for you to send over to that Breece Hall owner. Or if you own both of them, now you are in the position to just slide Michael Carter right in.
Yeah, and obviously, everybody, we want to avoid injuries, especially in young players. But, if it does happen, like you said, that creates some great value for you, or you already got the backup. I know a lot of people were scrambling after we found out Rashad Penny out for the season, another back who was having a career year and is now gone. His backup was picked up pretty much across all leagues. I'm in 7 different leagues. I searched for him late Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. I can't remember, right after waivers went through. And he was gone in all 7 leagues. So obviously he's a guy that's probably going to be on your roster. If he's not on your roster, it's probably too late to get him on your roster. But yeah, these younger and backup running backs have become very important so far here early in the season. You wanted to talk a little bit about Damon Pierce as well.
Yeah, Damon Pierce has been stealing the show in Houston. He was getting a lot of talk out of training camp as projecting him to be the number 1 guy, and it, just like Michael Carter, or Breece Hall, I should say, it took him about 2 or 3 weeks to really get into form there before they just handed him the keys. And my God, last week did he have a highlight run, probably the highlight of his career. I don't understand, or I can't imagine him topping that run.
And a whopping 26 attempts. I mean, you don't see a lot of running backs touch the ball 25 plus times total that much anymore, even with receptions included. He had 3 receptions on top of it, so he had the ball in his hands damn near 30 times last week for the Houston, and they ended up in that grinded out win against Jacksonville. But like you said, Pierce was slow for the first 2 weeks. All of a sudden, 18, 26, and 20 the 3 following weeks with no less than 80 yards and at least 1 touchdown in every one of those games. He went for 131 against the Chargers and 99 against Jacksonville. Now he has an early bye, a week 6 bye, before he gets to take on the likes of Las Vegas, Tennessee, a little bit tougher matchup in Philadelphia, New York, Washington, Miami. I mean, he's got a pretty favorable schedule, all things considered, coming off this bye.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can't think of anybody else in Houston to get that ball besides Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. No, it's setting up well, and we've seen running backs have massive success in down in Houston before, as far as fantasy goes, right? I mean, you can go back quite a ways, but there's always some names that just they're good, very good fantasy backs. So yeah, I don't know. It's something. Obviously, they've had a few different coaches, a few different offensive schemes over time, but something about that the running backs down in Houston, they're just able to get it done. And Damon Pierce, the most recent example, but he's on bye this week. He definitely should be in your starting lineup. And if you're lucky enough to have afforded him at the flex position, and he's not even one of your two starting running backs, you're probably sitting pretty good right now.
Oh yeah, must be nice.
Must be nice indeed. James Robinson was that guy for a little bit. He's obviously backed off just a tiny bit. Cordero Patterson was that guy for a little bit. Now he's out for most of the rest of fantasy season, at least. So Damon Pierce now probably that top guy that you stole a little bit later in the draft and is an easy lock it, forget it type in the flex position. So yeah, just a little bit of interesting stuff going on there with some of the younger running backs. And we can kind of parlay that into the running back situation going on in Green Bay. Now, things have kind of ebbed and flowed. When we were on with Luke on our very first episode, he said every offensive player not named A.J. Dillon or Aaron Jones just is not worth it. Not worth it to hold on to them, cut them, whatever. I didn't fully agree with that. Lazard's had a couple nice weeks. Romeo Doubs had one nice week. I think he might be the guy to look at this week with Lazard matching up against Sauce Gardner. But outside of that, you got two very good, pretty highly drafted running backs in Green Bay, and they're just not touching the ball as often as they should.
Yeah, it's something that I told you. I think I messaged it to you before the stream that the Green Bay Packers, if I'm not mistaken, they have a winning record at the moment, or just under
3-2,
3-2, and yet they don't seem built to win games, or they don't seem built to outscore opponents. Yet they've magically won games, and it's this puzzling case of how that offense is managing under Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, offensive-minded mastermind, as why he was brought in, Mike LaFleur, and yet they are seeming to really struggle to find their identity, even though most of the key players are still there from last year.
Yeah, for me, the bigger problem, especially fantasy-wise, is like, hey, if you basically got 3-4, maybe a fifth possession in the first half to score your points, because the Packers are doing nothing in the second half of these games. Nothing outside of the I think 17 or 20 that I think it was 17 that they scored in the second half against the Patriots. Outside of that, their other 4 games, 2 goose eggs, a field goal, and a touchdown in the second half across 4 games. That's not good fantasy wise, and it's certainly not good covering spreads. You said they're not really built to win. They're certainly not built to cover. I think they're just good enough to beat a lot of teams, but they have to do it ugly, and they have to basically bank on the fact that they're going to score in the first and second quarter. Otherwise, it's just been over for them. Look at the Tampa Bay game just a few weeks ago. Aaron Jones inches away from going up 21-3 early in the second quarter. They end up winning that game 14-12. Just nothing else coming after that. A couple other examples you can look at too, some big drops, some momentum killers. But for me, the concern right now, of course, Aaron Jones needs to touch the ball more. Aaron Jones needs to touch the ball more, and A.J. Dillon should be getting more looks. He's been that goal line back. He's been that 5 yards to go and in back for them for the last 2 seasons, and he's just not been getting those looks. And, of course, the Packers' lack of scoring plays into that. But my biggest concern here, beyond just the lack of touches, is the fact that, like I said, if you're looking at a Packer player and he's got 6 points at halftime, you pretty much can expect maybe 1 or 2 more the rest of the day, but that's it.
Yeah, barring some magical touchdown in the second half, cap it at 8-7 points max.
And Aaron Rodgers has he's been the poster child of consistency here in fantasy this season. He hasn't been blowing anybody out of the water, but his last 4 weeks in a row he's scored within 0.8 points every single week, between 16.1 and 16.88 points. So he's like a basically guaranteed lock. Like if you got a pretty solid lineup and like you just need your quarterback not to bomb, maybe trade for Aaron Rodgers or even look to pick up Aaron Rodgers in a couple of leagues if people had dropped him, because you're guaranteed at least 16 points from what it's looking like. Hopefully going to get a little more than that out of the Jets, but hasn't been lighting it up as far as touchdowns. He's consistent with 2 each of the past 4 weeks, but he's also throwing a lot more interceptions than we're used to him seeing here in early weeks. So it's all that together is balanced out to exactly 16 points. I really do think, though, that that's a winning quarterback number if you have the roster built around it.
Yeah, key phrase, if
right. It's not going to be everybody out there, most certainly, but, depending week to week, that 16 might not be enough. But if you can guarantee yourself, if you can build yourself around that 16, I've been starting Jared Goff, who's been great the first couple of weeks, but then last week he goes out and he puts up barely 5 points. I would have rather had the Rodgers consistent 16 right there. So it is something to kind of think about. But the Packers are an enigma right now. They're tough to figure out in real life football, and they're tough to figure out what you should do with them, certainly here in fantasy. I know Luke sent a question into the chat. Should he start Brian Robinson tonight for the Commanders or Romeo Doubs? I was on Brian Anderson, which I guess we can talk about right now. I think he's going to have – I think they're going to lean on him a little bit tonight. I think that they're going to kind of take the chains off him a little bit. Obviously, with it being a short week and him coming off of injury, he was on a snap count last week, but he only rushed the ball 9 times, and he did it pretty effectively. I think tonight's the night where they're like, okay, we saw what we needed to see out of this kid. We're going to let him go tonight.
First things first, the mayonnaise is lingering in the mouth. It just came back. It's disgusting. I hope I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy.
You have some water within reach? You got to go get some water.
I have some Powerade on the counter, but I'm going to tough it out for you guys. This is my dedication to you, the viewer.
That's a man.
Yeah. But to go back to Brian, I think, do you really think that Carson Wentz is going to find them? Do you think that the Washington Commanders are going to get down, to mount a massive comeback, and you think Carson Wentz is going to go off the roof tonight? It's like you said, they're going to lean heavily on Brian.
He's got a strained bicep tendon as well, is what I've been hearing.
Yeah, Jahan Dotson is out as well, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be a run-heavy game for them.
I really don't mind starting Curtis Samuel, though, even with the Carson Wentz injury, because like pretty much all the air yards have been going to one of those 2 receivers. And now, like you said, with Dotson out, Samuel's had a pretty good season, anyway. And Carson Wentz was slinging the ball around in the first 3 weeks. I think those 2 are each acceptable starts for me tonight. But yeah, like you said, if this is more of if they are able to keep it close, which they should be able to against the Bears, and it's a lower scoring game, I think Robinson's going to touch the ball a lot. But if any pass catcher gets in the end zone, it's got to be Curtis Samuel. How
do you feel about Mooney, especially coming into this week?
He's been, I traded him in a league already. I dropped him in another. He's been somebody I haven't really concerned myself with. I liked him at the end of last year, which is why I got him in so many leagues. But I mean, how are you going to start a guy whose quarterback has thrown no more than 15 completions all season long? He had 13.4 2 weeks ago against the Giants. Other than that, it's been disaster.
And I think to piggyback off of that, one of the things that made Justin Fields such an exciting prospect coming out of OSU was that he could run the ball just as effectively, arguably as effectively, as his arm strength. And yet,
which he has been doing. He's hovered around 50 rushing yards in the last 3 weeks. So it's like, obviously, he's leaning on that right now, and they're not allowing him to throw.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so frustrating for me, especially with Cole Kmet being a higher end, I guess, as he was projected before the season for a tight end 2 spot. And yet it just seems like nothing is panning out in Chicago. Not even Justin Fields, which will be a shame if that's the case.
Yeah, it's tough for anybody right now. I mean, Khalil Herbert had a couple nice weeks. Montgomery is pretty touchdown dependent a lot of times. It's tough to really love anybody in this game tonight, but I do think Robinson will have an opportunity to go off in this game. I don't think they're gonna restrict him too heavily, especially if it's working. And I do think Curtis Samuel has a decent chance of scoring. He's put up some good fantasy numbers already this season. So I'm also on the Commanders to win this game. The public is betting the Bears. Pretty much all the experts and people I listen to like the Bears tonight. The Commanders are really bad, but are they 1-5 bad, especially against the Bears? I don't know. I gotta back them against the Bears at least tonight.
I'm gonna second that motion. Yeah. I do not like the Bears whatsoever.
And it seems like this is a game the Bears should lose, right? Everybody is backing them. They played a little bit better in the last couple of weeks. They're at home. That it just seems like a game that the Bears will lose.
You know, I don't know the official statistic too, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Bears do not have a favorable record on primetime, at least lately.
I would assume not. I mean, half the time they play in primetime is against Aaron Rodgers, and we know how that goes. And
yeah,
you know, I don't recall them winning a ton of other games, primetime games. So no, they certainly are not great in primetime. So a little detour here, but I really do like the Commanders tonight. I think they win this game, and I think Robinson or Samuel gets in the end zone. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and get Robinson his first touchdown tonight, like try hard to get him in the end zone. We got never mind. That's just that's not a relevant comment. So,
well, I see this one comment. Hey guys, talking fantasy. Well, we were talking about mayonnaise and coffee in particular, but yes, now we're talking about fantasy football. Hope you enjoyed me torturing myself.
I think everybody did. And now our viewership went up quite a bit here, spiked in the last couple of minutes. So all of you who missed it in the beginning, as soon as we get off air, you're going to want to go back and rewatch the first 4 or 5 minutes of this stream. It was certainly entertaining. But I think that's enough for the game tonight. You know, it could be one of those games too where it's just like absolutely nothing happens and it's a horrible fantasy night. You know, that could be the deal. Or it could surprise us and be a somewhat entertaining game. But if you got any questions as far as who you think you should start tonight, definitely throw them our way. So we talked about the Packers, talked about the running backs. The Seahawks, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. The Seahawks are just one of the biggest surprises of the season, especially fantasy-wise. Geno is now a top 5 scoring fantasy quarterback. You should be. I mean, everybody's starting DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett right now, right? Like, what are you looking to talk about here?
You know, well, I think you kind of hit it. It's just that this season overall for fantasy is really weird. You mentioned earlier that you're starting Jared Goff over Aaron Rodgers. If you would have told me that going into the season, I wouldn't have believed you. If you would have told me that Russell Wilson would be cooking cereal instead of gourmet meals, I wouldn't believe you. And yet look at Geno Smith. I mean, dear Lord, everybody and their mother should be starting DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, pick up Kenneth Walker if you haven't. And if you don't have any of them, trade for them. I don't care what you have to trade. Trade a second-round pick. That's as high as it'll go.
So I'm looking up Walker's stats right now, and yeah, he went from being rostered in barely 40% of leagues to over 80% now. So there are some of you out there who will be able to grab him, but I'm guessing that's probably some 6 or 8 man leagues. So there's probably better options anyway, maybe. But he still would be a great guy to go pick up right now. But yeah, they're just making it work, man. They're piecing it together, and like you said, Russ. And he's cooking cereal and eating Subway, I guess, is pretty much what's going on for him right now. But yeah, I am not in the camp of Russ. It's over for Russ. He's cooked. He's never going to be the Russ we know again. Um, he's still young and he's still Russell Wilson. I think he's going to figure it out. Maybe not this season, maybe not with this head coach, but I don't think it was a complete waste of $150 million or whatever it was. I think that they're going to get a couple decent seasons out of him, but I just don't see it this season. I don't see how they're turning it around anytime soon. They've got kind of a confusing backfield as well. It's all negative right now for the Broncos, that's for sure. But I saw a couple posts actually of people that were just like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but they were dropping Russell Wilson, picking up Geno Smith. So just kind of funny there.
Yeah, I believe it. Right, and rightfully so.
So we fielded a question here finally. So we got B-Rob, who I'm trying to figure out.
Brian Robinson.
Thank you. All right, Robinson. Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. We just talked about him. Dobbins or Dillon? Like I said, I got, it could be a boomer bust type thing tonight, but I really do think Robinson is going to score tonight. I think they're going to try their very best to get him in the end zone. I think he's got a touchdown in him. And like Zach was alluding to, game script could be very favorable for him. AJ Dillon is just not getting the looks that I would like him to get. And I think that the Packers running backs are going to get a boost this week because Matt LaFleur has been answering some questions and kind of under fire, like, hey, why did your two great running backs touch the ball combined 19 times last week? That's an issue, especially when you're not throwing the ball well and scoring in the second half. So I do think there's going to be a boost there, but I see Aaron Jones being more of a beneficiary of that boost. What's your opinion on J.K. Dobbins? He's not on any of my rosters. He's kind of been off my radar just a little bit. I like Robinson over Dillon so far, but is there an argument to be made for Dobbins?
I'm going to hold my breath, and I'm going to actually suggest Dobbins, and I am not going to start him because whenever I do, for some reason, it's almost as if J.K. Dobbins watches this stream. He watches my life, and he just knows when to screw me over. Whenever I don't start him, J.K. Dobbins just decides to go off. So you know what, Mr. Alphabet Man, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you go ahead and you start him and you tell me how that goes. Because it might just go better for you than me.
So he's on a little bit of a boom and bust pattern right now. 6 points against New England, 22 points against Buffalo, 4 points against Cincinnati. So if the math lines up, if the sequence continues, then he's going to have another 20-point week against the Giants this week. But I don't know. I personally, I would take the risk right now, especially with it being Thursday. Just personally, I would take the risk and see what Robinson can do tonight. And if it's a total bomb, he lays an egg, whatever, then you know what you need from your team the rest of the weekend. But I would give him a shot tonight. I think he's got a pretty favorable matchup in prime time. Like I said, he's probably going to be the most rested guy on that team because of, obviously he was recovering from injuries, but he hasn't been playing football and he only touched the ball a couple of times 5 days ago. And I think that was maybe strategically on purpose to be like, okay, what can this kid show us on a snap count? And if it's positive, we're going to let the reins off of him on Thursday night. And I think that's exactly what we're setting up to see. I really do think Dobbins gets in the end zone tonight. Or excuse me, Robinson gets in the end zone tonight.
Well, I hope Dobbins does too.
Yeah, he probably will, but not tonight. I can guarantee you that. So one more thing before we talk about, I want to spend some time on Christian McCaffrey and his potential future and what that means for his fantasy stats. But first, we'll throw it to you because obviously you're a Browns fan. You want to talk a little bit about Amari Cooper.
So I may or may not have gotten roasted by this with my take on Amari Cooper saying that it was going to be hot and cold. At the time, we didn't know that I was correct. And that's a little bit of an understatement. Okay, how do I explain this? His stats going into next week, he is scoring on average for PPR leagues over 20 points per home games. For away games, he is scoring, I think it's like 6 or less, or maybe it's
He has
even 3.
scored a total of 6.6 points on the road.
Exactly. I think it's a home game this week against New England. I'm starting Amari Cooper, and I'm just going to reiterate what I said on that stream a couple of weeks ago. I think that's what you get from Amari Cooper, and by extension, I think that's what you get from the Browns this season. One off week, one hot week. They're playing back-to-back home games, all the merrier, but I don't think Amari Cooper nor the Browns are anybody you can trust week to week.
I like the Browns to win this game, and I certainly think Amari Cooper is going to find the end zone. He has, as you've been saying, in every home game so far this season. And his yards the last 3 home games, 101, 101, 76, a touchdown to boot in all of them. And Jacoby Brissett continues to look his way. 10 targets, 11 targets, and 12 targets in the last 3 home games. So, I mean, if anybody out there is not starting Amari Cooper, I would love to know why. That's basically just rolling the dice big time just to try and prove like that I know he's not going to have a good matchup against New England. I'm going to sit him, whatever. That's foolish. He has been unstoppable at home. A total of 4 receptions and 26 yards on the road, and just insane monster numbers at home. So maybe that's a good thing to follow the rest of the season until he shows he can perform on the roads. Like, hey, start him this weekend, New England, and then bench him the week after Baltimore. Then you get him at home against Cincinnati into a bye week. So, yeah, I think certainly there should be no doubt that he's in your lineup this week. Got another question involving the game tonight. Curtis Samuel or Gunshot B-Rob, 12-team PPR. Seems like Chicago has a decent pass defense and a crappy run defense. So I agree, and even beyond that, like Zach and I were talking about, I think game script and game situation going to have a lot to do with it tonight. I don't see Carson Wentz and Justin Fields getting into a sling it all over the field, duke it out type battle. And if they don't have to beat the Bears through the air, they probably won't, because then you can conserve Carson Wentz's arm, right? And like I've been saying for half this stream, it feels like I think that this is a game that they want to showcase Gunshot B-Rob, as Joe Villa puts it. I think they want to get him in the end zone, and I think he's rested and ready to go, and is probably hungry to play some football. Whereas Curtis Samuel he's got a great chance to get into the end zone as well. He's let me bring up his stats here, but I think as far as tonight, if you have to choose between them, like I said, I'm rolling the dice on Gunshot B-Rob tonight.
Yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and he's coming back with a vengeance.
Certainly is. So I got Curtis Samuel up right here. He's the 17th highest scoring wide receiver this season. He hasn't found the end zone since week 2, but his catches have been keeping him afloat and keeping him very relevant in PPR. Carson Wentz continues to look his way, and I think will obviously do so even heavier, even more tonight with Jahan Dotson out. Clearly, they're not going to just run the ball 70 times tonight. There is going to be some pass game going on. It sucks you got to choose between these guys, because I actually don't mind either of them. I think both of them could potentially score, or each of them have a real good game and one of them scores. But Curtis Samuel, again, kind of looking at this, he had a great game in Detroit, but at Dallas he did almost nothing on the road. But he's played very well at home. Chicago on a Thursday night, yeah, the Bears aren't the scariest team, but they're going to be keying in on him without Jahan Dotson, so that is a little bit of a negative. Obviously, they're probably going to double cover him and really zone in on him. So it's just not delicious enough to go over Gunshot B-Rob for me. I think he's going to be highlighted. The Al Michaels and what's his name, Herb Street. They're going to be talking all night about Robinson. Like, everything is primed for this kid to score a touchdown. So I like Robinson over Samuel.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you for the question. Let's talk a little bit about Christian McCaffrey, and then if anybody else has any more questions, send them our way, or otherwise we'll probably hop off here in just a little bit. Joe Villa also says he saw Wentz turns into a Hall of Fame quarterback on Thursday Night Football, turns into Joe Montana. Check the stats. I believe you. I mean,
Isn't he
Carson Wentz
undefeated
was tossing
on
the ball
Thursday
around
night?
the yard in the first couple of weeks. Like I say, his injury might hamper him a little bit tonight, especially given the fact it's like he could push through it and he could play through it if that's what's needed of him. I don't know if it's going to be needed of him going against Justin Fields. But yeah, Carson Wentz, very good on Thursday nights. I'll believe you. Because
I think he's undefeated or something.
Makes sense. What's that?
I think he's undefeated on Thursday nights.
Beautiful.
Something that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, love it. You get those weird stats sometimes, it's like I guess he's the anti-Kirk Cousins. Not good during noon games on Sunday, but you put him in primetime, he ends up winning. Exact opposite true with Kirk Cousins. But good luck. Good luck, Mr. Villa. Remember though, we are rolling the dice here with a rookie running back who was just shot a month ago and has only had 9 carries in his NFL career. We are rolling the dice, but I think he finds the end zone over Samuel if it's only going to be one of them. So if you're looking for a touchdown tonight, I think he's the way to go. Of course, you do have some experience in the backfield behind him. So if he doesn't get going early, maybe they look to Gibson. Who knows? But I've said too much and I've convinced myself I got to go with Robinson here tonight. So let's talk a little bit about Christian McCaffrey so what makes Christian McCaffrey interesting is he's played on bad teams his entire career, right? He's played for a couple different coaches. He's played with a few or maybe more than a few subpar quarterbacks, but he's always the one that you can rely on. The offense goes through him. If quarterback's in a bad situation, dump it off to CMC. He's going to pick up 15 yards, whatever the case is. So he's been a very, very easy plug and play guy when he's not hurt. Obviously, he's phenomenal. If he goes to a team like the Bills or an offense that has it together and has talent all over the field and has an elite quarterback, that hurts his fantasy value, right? I mean, obviously it hurts his fantasy value, but how much? Like, will he start turning into a 12 to 15 point guy when we're used to him being a 22 to 25 point guy? What does the future hold for Christian McCaffrey if he ends up on a team that has it together?
Well, I mean, I think you said it best. When he's healthy, that's number one. Number two, he's probably going to go to an AFC contender. I cannot imagine Carolina wanting to keep him in the same conference to stop Carolina's chances of progressing, especially if they value him as much as we all do in the fantasy world. And then number three, it's going to take some time for him to adjust to that offense. And if the Bills have been rumored to, Bills have a committee. Bills got Zach Moss. They drafted James Cook, Dalvin Cook's little brother. And then they have Devin Singletary.
Yeah. But I think James Cook, he's as good as gone if you trade for – he's got to be included in the package. So he's out, going to Carolina.
And there's still two other running backs in that room that are starters on essentially starters. They split carries in Buffalo, starters anywhere else in the league.
But the other thing for me too is like his number of touches is going to go down, which makes his chances at an explosive play go down. Josh Allen doesn't very often need the last second dump off or the what's the word I'm looking for here when a quarterback's in trouble.
Check down.
And you need to make a check down, but like I can't think of the word, but basically Carolina finds themselves in a lot of situations where it's like it would just dump the ball off, get it in his hands, get it whatever, versus Josh Allen can create time. He can make something happen down the field. So it's not necessarily going to be Christian McCaffrey because of the bailout all the time. So I think his touches would go down. I think his touchdowns would go down. Just overall, his efficiency probably going to go down. Now, will he stay healthier? There's a good chance for sure. But it's interesting, and I've been wanting to get a bunch of people's opinions on, how far does Christian McCaffrey fall if he leaves the Carolina Panthers?
Well, yeah, it's going. How far does he fall? I think it's going to be significant, like you and I have touched on. And one thing that I think, just to add on to it, when we talk about injuries, he's been pretty banged up for his entire career. And we were talking about the emergence of rookie running backs earlier, especially for fantasy as well as IRL in real life use. Running backs have a relatively short shelf life. I mean, you run them until the wheels fall off, and Christian McCaffrey's wheels have most definitely gotten some tire changes, and you don't really know how much longer that's going to last at the same level that he used to. I think those days are gone.
I think that's a role that he would embrace wholeheartedly, especially if it's for a winning team, a winning program. But fantasy-wise, I think people are probably clamoring, CMC owners, like they maybe don't want to see him go anywhere. A guy with that much talent and that much dependability, again, when he's on the field, fantasy-wise, he's better off on a bad offense. He's better off being the guy where, like, nobody's even in the same stratosphere as him talent-wise on that offense. You go to the Bills, Christian McCaffrey's never going to be just another guy, but in that offense, I mean, he's a guy. He's an option. He's a guy, but he's not the guy. So it'll be really interesting depending, watching where he goes. And of course, too, it always takes time with a mid-season trade, especially, running back's a little easier than maybe a wide out or a different position player. But Joe Villa just had to chuckle a little bit in the comments. So
I saw.
If you've been watching since the beginning of the stream, I've talked about Brian Robinson for about 15 minutes total. So Bubba Gump goes, "Hey, thoughts on Brian Robinson tonight?" And I was just like, "All right, I'm going to have to go back in for about 5 more minutes." Well, our buddy Joe Villa in the chat took care of it. Pretty much summarized exactly what I said. We think he will score. That might be the game where they let him loose. That's exactly my thoughts. Like I said, I think they kept him on a pitch count, A, for his health and safety, but B, just to kind of see, hey, how effective can this guy be with limited touches? And if he's effective, we're letting him loose on Thursday Night Football. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see tonight. Again, game script, game situation. I think both teams going to be running the ball quite a bit. If the Commanders can get out to a bit of a lead, which I also kind of see tonight, because as Joe told us, Carson Wentz averages 240 yards per game, 2.5 touchdowns, and 0.3 interceptions in his career on Thursday night. To go along with an undefeated record, we think. Pretty darn good stats for Carson Wentz. I think the Bears lose this game tonight, and if they go down by a couple touchdowns, even 10 points, and there's an injured Carson Wentz out there, I think he's handing the ball off quite a bit. So Robinson is the guy tonight. Gunshot B-Rob. So thank you for being so interactive and helping out the other commenters there, Joe Villa. We definitely appreciate you. Couple minutes left. Any other questions for anybody else, please toss them our way. Otherwise, you can also always hit us up on Twitter after the fact, especially if they are about this weekend. Zach, I think that's pretty much all the notes that we brought. Anything else off the top of your head, or otherwise we can kind of get
I
get ready for the game tonight here.
I guess it doesn't really affect us this Sunday, but it might go into next Sunday. But just awaiting the Devontae Adams situation and fantasy and what that means for the Raiders coming out of the bye week.
Have you heard anything about the NFL getting involved as far as like suspension, punishment, whatever?
They are investigating.
Yeah.
But we'll see how long that takes.
I'm glad you brought that up because that whole thing is a little bit, I mean, the fact that guy had to go to the hospital and a police report and whatever, like if he would have just been cool about it or like hit up Devontae Adams' people or whatever, I'm sure he could have gotten anything he wanted signed. He could have gotten some monetary value out of that, and it would have been whatever. But like now you got to go this route. You got to file a police report and get this guy charged with assault. Like that's such a lame move, man. That's such a lame move. And he might get suspended. The NFL might get involved. Like, I think what Draymond Green did to his own teammate is much, much, much worse. Much worse.
Yeah.
That was intent to harm. That was a closed fist to the face. I can't believe that what this Davante Adams situation has turned into.
It's snowballed so much more than you would ever assume, especially with the Draymond Green situation in two different sports, but I mean professional athletes. And then I guess in terms of fantasy, pick up Hunter Renfrow. Darren Waller's injured. Matt Collins.
Renfrow needs a big week. Matt Collins, I think, was a one-trick pony that 1 week. And yeah, I agree. Villa in the chat says, you got to file the players report if you want to get paid. Rather have money than a signed football. I agree with that sentiment, but I also think that what Davante Adams did was so non-egregious and so non-harmful, like as far as like actual physical harm. The fact that this guy went to the hospital and like he could have gotten a couple thousand. Like, what are you going to do? Settle in? Like, you're going to settle in civil court for like $5,000 or whatever? Like, you could get a couple grand off some Davante Adams signed stuff, or you could turn it into like people felt sorry for him immediately, and now I don't think anybody does because he's turned himself into an unsympathetic just dick who is now trying to get Davante Adams in as much trouble as possible. I just don't think that's very cool. And yeah, he'll probably make a little cash off it. He would have made a little cash either way, I think, if he would have just handled it differently. But whatever, I guess to each their own. Maybe he comes from a Sue Happy family.
Maybe it's just, well, I mean, it's like you said, maybe he might have got some cash quicker if he hadn't gone this route.
But now he's going to have to put up money too. If you're taking this guy to court, you got to pay your own lawyer fees. You got to do so much hassle, whatever. It's like you get a couple signed things or like you do a deal. You don't need court to be like, hey, toss me $5,000 and this doesn't go any further. I don't file police report, whatever. Just do a backhand, do a handshake deal. And there's a million different ways to kind of just get this to go away and get what you want. It's not like he's going to get $50,000 from Davante Adams or something like that. That's just not going to happen. But while we're talking about Davante Adams, we did get a couple other questions, so we will end with these.
Also,
DK
thank
Metcalf
you, Joe.
and Tyler Lockett. I'll throw that one to you since you brought them up earlier anyway.
Which one was what question am I answering?
So just DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett?
Ooh, I'm going to go DK Metcalf just because he's the traditional number one receiver. He is that X build. He is that guy. Tyler Lockett is also getting up there in age. DK.
DK is such a go up and get it guy too, where like Tyler Lockett can hit those bombs if you drop it in the bucket, which Geno Smith has shown the ability to do so far this season. But Metcalf is just a go make a play, get up and go get it type guy. So I would go DK Metcalf as well. Montgomery or Waddle this week, full PPR. I'm really not feeling the whole Waddle because of the QB situation. Teddy Bridgewater can throw the football, man. He can throw the football.
I don't think he's playing. Skylar Thompson, yeah, he's still in concussion protocol.
I thought he had been cleared. I thought
I think I just saw something before we got on stream.
But I could be wrong. So yeah, if Teddy Bridgewater is not playing, then that's a much tougher choice. But I don't love David Montgomery either. That's a tough one. I still would start Jalen Waddle because he's got separation ability, breakaway ability, all that stuff.
Skylar Thompson starting for Miami.
Well, and if they've known that all week, then maybe they draw something up for those guys. That's tough. That's tough. But Montgomery's not a great second option either.
Trade.
What would you feel there?
Who can you trade for? Who can you trade for to not start either of those two?
I'm bringing up Montgomery right here. So obviously,
I'm so sorry, Woody.
The rush defense for the Commanders has not been great, and it's been boom or bust for David Montgomery. 8 points, then 15, 1 point, then 18. So again, if we're following patterns, he's set for another single digit performance. But I guess with the third string quarterback, Miami probably won't be chucking the ball around that much either. I pray for you, Woody. I don't really have a great question. I personally would just follow my gut and just start Jalen Waddle anyway, but that's really tough. Good luck with that decision. Next question: would you trade Kyler and Juju for Kirk, Delvin, and Pollard?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Juju really hasn't been doing too much this year, has he?
No, it's the alpha is Travis Kelce, and anybody outside of that just isn't consistent enough to get any excitement from me or from seemingly any other expert in fantasy football. I'm not calling myself an expert, but just what the tabloids are saying.
Well, and Kyler Murray has not been the Kyler Murray of the last few seasons as far as fantasy goes. And Kirk Cousins has a couple real nice targets, especially in Justin Jefferson. And if you can get 3 players for 2 almost always, as long as that third player isn't just a place filler, Dalvin Cook and Tony Pollard are guys you can start seemingly every week. And Kyler Murray is been playing from behind a lot, so that's helped his numbers. But if they ever get it together and don't go down 14-0 in the first quarter every week, he's probably going to be throwing the ball a little bit less. Now they do get Hopkins back relatively soon, but I think Kirk Cousins is going to have another 4,000 plus yard season with a bunch of touchdowns.
QB 11 right now.
What's that?
QB 11 right now for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you can get 3 legit players for 2, I'm almost always making that trade. Who knows what's going to happen with Zeke? And Pollard's been very solid. So the other thing is too about Juju. MVS finally showed why they traded for him or signed him rather. He had like 8 catches the other night. So that's just more competition. And the ball gets spread around outside of Travis Kelce. There's not, like you said, there's not one dominant wide receiver like there used to be. Lockett just popped up as questionable. That locks in DK Metcalf even more solid. All right. Evan Gittleman says, I like how these questions just come. We're on for 50 minutes and nobody asks anything. And then we're about to get off. And we got
I should have drank the coffee at the end.
You really should have. I'm telling everybody, go back, watch the first 3 to 5 minutes of this stream. Our boy Zach drank mayo coffee, and it's definitely worth it to go check that out.
No bueno.
So he says my running backs are currently Naji Harris, James Cameron, and ETN. Is there a question that goes with that I missed, or just a comment here? Oh, it's from the so same guy that asked just our last question, if he would trade. So I don't absolutely. Really in that case. So you're gonna have 6 running backs on your team. I would just make sure that you've got your wide receivers set. Juju's probably not going to be the biggest, you're not going to miss him all that much. But if you got 6 running backs on your team, you don't have very much room for error when it comes to pass catchers.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Maybe if you want to counter that trade to see if you can get maybe their wide receiver 1 or 2. I don't know what their team looks like, but, I mean, it's worth a shot.
Naji Harris is a guy that you can look at trading right now, too, especially if he has a decent week. I feel like this week's either he's going to be back and have some trade value, or he's going to be he's not going to perform well, and nobody's going to really be giving up too much for him. I like Naji Harris a lot coming into this season. Has not performed up to standards, but obviously he was playing with Mitch, and now he's playing, with a rookie QB in his first couple of starts. He's a guy that, I'm not gonna lose sleep over if you can make a deal for him. James Conner, same thing. I'd probably rather have Dalvin Cook or Tony Pollard than almost any one of those 3 guys right now, which is, maybe not going to hold true for the rest of the season. But Najee Harris probably still has a little trade value in him right now. Woody the Badger wants to go back to the Montgomery Waddle question. I have Olave, but he might be out due to concussion protocols. So if you got Olave, I personally would not, I probably wouldn't be rushing to start Montgomery. If you got Olave, who's questionable with Waddle as a backup, I'd probably just wait till Sunday and see what you can kind of piece together there. I just don't have much love for Montgomery right now. Zach, what do you feel on that? Do you start Montgomery tonight, or do you go with the Olave Waddle situation?
No, I would wait. And honestly, if you don't have anybody else that you can start, wait till Sunday. Wait to see if Olave is playing, or see if you can pick somebody up right before the game time on Sunday. Because I ain't liking that situation. I feel for you, buddy.
The chat's just going off right now, talking about their own rosters, and so we got a question from Lincoln was here. B-Rob or Zeke? Now this is an interesting one. It's fun to watch a guy play on Thursday, but is the difference worth it? It would be in my flex spot. I got Kamara and CMC, who I think should both have pretty good numbers this week. So yeah, it sucks to burn a flex spot on a Thursday, and it's either always a great, awesome move, and it sets you up with you're looking at that number going into Sunday. All of a sudden, you got a 75% chance to win already because your guy took off or went off on a Thursday. Or Zeke, Zeke in primetime against the Eagles, I don't like it. I think the Eagles show that they're a real, legitimate, top-of-the-league team, and the Cowboys have to lose eventually. They have to have a bad game out of Cooper Rush eventually.
Against they arguably did last week. He threw 10 times.
Yeah, so they've been limiting him. But against the Eagles, who can score at a high rate, they might have to put the ball in his hands even more. Let me look up Zeke here. But that game in general, I love the Eagles. I locked him in already at -6. The line has already moved to -6.5. I think Cooper Rush having to play a primetime division game in the NFC East against a team that is Eagles have got to be thinking, if we win this game, there's no way nobody. If we win this game big, people have to put us as a top three. Because I'm still hearing yeah, they haven't played anybody. They're really good, but I don't think they're as good as the Bucs. I don't think they're as good as the Chiefs. I don't think they're as good as the Packers. I don't think they're as good as just go down the list. I think the Eagles are better than the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the only team I don't think they're better than, except the Bills. I think they're better than the Packers. I think they're better than the Bucs. I think they're better than every team in the NFC. I think they're better than every team in the NFC. So.
I don't think that's a hot as a take as I think that would be before the season. I think that they're undefeated for a reason. It's theirs to lose, and until that happens, I'm going to keep choosing Philly. So with that in mind, I'm not going to take Zeke. I'm going to say B-Rob tonight.
There we go. That's been the theme. Either we're going to be extremely right and everybody's going to be happy, or I'm going to have to eat my humble pie because I'm taking the risk here. I'm taking the risk, and Zeke in primetime against Philly in a game that I think the Cowboys are going to lose is just not a spot that I love. So hopefully that helped out Woody and Lincoln as well. Just looking through the rest of the comments here. Most of them are from our buddy Joe Villa. So I think with only 5 minutes left before the kickoff here, again, I am on the Commanders tonight. I think the Commanders win. And we need a Brian Robinson touchdown. If we can get a tutty, even if he's got 25 yards tonight, but he's got a tutty, I think it'll be a success. So Lincoln says, thanks. I'm taking the gamble. We're taking it with you. Everybody that asked the question, I think, is taking it with you. Let's go gunshot Rob.
Yeah, we swayed somebody.
There we go. Hopefully it turns out better than our Jason Sanders suggestion just a couple weeks ago when he outscored Matt Prater by about 15. But I think that's where we will leave it. Go Commanders. Zach, thank you for your time. As always, make sure to head on over to FlurrySports.org. Zach Bruner put out his fantasy football rankings. They're always great, always informative. So if you're still Sunday morning comes around, you're still struggling with a couple decisions, that's a great place to go. Just go to FlurrySports.org, type in fantasy football rankings or fantasy football right in the search bar. It'll pop right up for you. Coach also writes a start sit article for every different position every week. Go check those out as well. Let's go Gunshot B-Rob one last time. Thank you all for being here. Prize Picks, code Flurry, up to $100 deposit match. All right, that's where we're going to leave you. We will talk to you tomorrow for the gambling stream right here on Flurry Sports Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. One more. We'll do one more. Squeezed it in right as I was about to press the end stream
nice.
button. Deebo Samuel or McLaren, Jeff Wilson, and Olave. I will not sit Deebo Samuel, no matter who's his quarterback, no matter who they're playing. I don't care. He's too good. Kyle Shanahan's too creative. He's too dynamic. You got to start Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, well, but also, like, what's happening with Jeff Wilson? Why can't you start him at the running back spot?
I don't know. Maybe this is all for a flex spot, but if you got a roster where you're considering Deebo for your flex, that's pretty stacked roster. If we didn't answer your question clearly or we misunderstood it, hit us up on Twitter. Thank you for the question. Starting Deebo Samuel always. That is it for Flurry Sports. I am Jake Senholz. That's Zach Espinoza. Go back and watch him drink Mayo coffee at the beginning. Go back and watch the stream. First 5 minutes.
Disgusting.
Hilarious. All right. Enjoy the game, everybody. Thank you. We got one more here. Literally, you guys aren't letting me press the end stream. All right. Hey, guys, I'm being offered Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Gabe Javis for Jonathan Taylor. My other starting running backs are Barkley and Hall. My other wide receivers are Sutton and Gordon. I like that trade. Jonathan, one guy for us. Two decent running backs and a guy who just caught a 94-yard touchdown or whatever, clearly building even more of a connection with Josh Allen. I like it. Jonathan Taylor has not been worthy of a 1-1 pick. And if you can kind of fill, I'm sure, if you picked him 1-1, you probably got some holes in your roster. You're starting some guys that you don't love starting every week. Give me Aaron Jones and Gabe Davis. A.J. Dillon is just a bonus. Sure, why not? For that, I'll trade Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, Breece Hall and Barkley are good enough to replace Jonathan Taylor, just them two alone. Absolutely take that trade.
100%. All right, I'm pressing the end stream button quick this time. So thank you. Thank you for the question, Jeb. Glad we could answer. Glad we could help you out. Go Commanders, and we will talk to you later.
Good luck.